You know it's hard out here for a pimp when he tryna get this money for the rent, for the Cadillacs and gas money spent. We'll have a whole lot of bitches jumping shit. You know it's hard out here for a pimp when he tryna get this money for the rent, for the Cadillacs and gas money spent. Will cause a whole lot of jumping shit. You know it's hard out here for a pimp when he tryna get this money for the rent, for the Cadillacs and gas money spent. Will have a whole lot of jumping shit.
What's going on, party people? It's your man, 50 Grand, the Godfather, Nate Milton, and you are about to listen to another excellent episode from the Nefarious Media Network. Since January of 2025, we have been putting it down for the crown, and we've been committed to bringing you truthful, thoughtful, turned-up commentary as it pertains to the worlds of sports, politics, pop culture, pro wrestling, entertainment, and life. Yes, life. This thing that we are all just trying to get through day by day. An electric word called life, as the man used to say. And that brings us to the drive for 500. Yes, 500 YouTube subscribers, which gets us halfway to monetization, and 500 Patreon subscribers. Patreon.com/Nefarious Media Network. That's our stretch goal for the year, because if we hit those marks, it allows us the flexibility and the freedom and the funds, quite honestly, to do some more things here at the network, to be more consistent with our shows, to bring you new shows, and to bring some people on to help with production. So if you believe in us, man, if you believe in what we're doing here, because we got a lot of hard-working people, myself included, working 50, 60 hours a week at the shoot jobs, got families, got kids, got responsibilities, but we still do this, man, because we love this and we believe in this. And if you believe in us and you love the shows that we do, help us out, man. Help a brother out. Help a sister out. That's all we asking, because we are trying to change the game by any means necessary, even if those means may be nefarious.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
This is SBF, Styles Break Fights, with your hosts, Chinyere Okafor and Ray Williams, presented by the Nefarious Media Network.
Hi. It's your boy Two-Way Ray Williams, and we are back again with another installment of the Styles Break Fights podcast, September of 2025. How y'all doing? Hopefully all of y'all are doing well. At the time of this recording, it is September 23rd, I believe. If you run in those circles on social media, then it's supposed to be the rapture. If you're not a religious person, it's a biblical tale that basically Jesus is supposed to come back, take up all of his elect, and then leave the rest of them behind. Well, hopefully I didn't get left behind, but don't think the rapture is going to happen right now, but we still got like 7 hours left in the day. So who knows? Hopefully I can still get this podcast up, but hopefully all of y'all are doing well. Chi-Chi didn't get caught up in the rapture, as far as I know, but Chi-Chi, again, cannot join me. Of course, she's always hardworking with her duties at EFC and also with her duties as an independent combat sports writer. So hopefully she's doing well, and hopefully we can get her back. Hopefully she's not too broken up over DDP losing the title last month. But we're not going to bring up that stuff. We got a whole bunch to talk about today, including not Floyd Mayweather. I don't know why I was thinking Floyd Mayweather. Terrance Bud Crawford getting a big time victory over Saul Canelo Alvarez. We're also talking about upcoming UFC pay-per-view card that'll be UFC 320. But just like last time, guys, just like last month, even though Chi-Chi isn't here, I am not alone, because joining me is a good friend of mine, a very good dude. He's a martial arts instructor, jiu-jitsu black belt, also a fellow pro wrestling fan and a fellow black nerd as well. So hopefully you guys can go ahead and welcome on. This is a recording, so you probably weren't hearing this live, but go ahead, even while you're listening to this recording, go ahead and give it up for my friend Tedy Bisrat. Tedy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, brother. You're one of the folks that I really wanted to get on here, and especially want to get you on our pro wrestling podcast as well. We'll have to talk about that, but I especially wanted to get you on here because Spinning Black Fists was the original name of this podcast, because I wanted to kind of show a side of mixed martial arts that was more Afrocentric. But we knew that name wasn't going to stick, so we went ahead with Styles Break Fights. So with that being said, you being a martial arts practitioner of color, I wanted to know what got you into martial arts, and who are some of your influences and some of your inspirations as far as the sport goes, or as far as just mainly martial arts goes?
Yeah, so my parents, they got me and my brother into Taekwondo back in the day. Just kind of like a lot of kids being thrown into karate and other sports and things like that. And, I got stuck into that. Also growing up watching a lot of action movies from the 80s, being an 80s kid and growing into the 90s. I grew up around a lot of, those kind of action stars. It was mainly, obviously, a lot more white male dominated. But those that stood out for sure, that really influenced me growing up, or like, people like Wesley Snipes. Some people don't realize he has a martial arts background. And a lot of the stunts he did were just legit, and you could tell they're like practical effects. But yeah, like just people like him, just a lot of different movies and shows growing up. You got Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon. That whole movie definitely influenced, I'm sure, not just me, a lot of people. Growing up a lot of TV shows, and you see a lot of different characters come into play. Something that just came up in my mind earlier was like Family Matters. If you remember Steve Urkel.
Yes.
Remember when he had those episodes where he transformed into Bruce Lee? Yeah. So, when he turned to Bruce Lee, I'm just like, oh, he's a nerd. He could easily fight too if he wants to, just transform. He's got the science behind him, and just whenever he wants, he can save the day. So, kind of those kind of things influenced me growing up, being a nerd myself. So yeah, that's pretty much what got me into the footsteps into martial arts. But then later, into high school, I got into more jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, and all that good stuff. And then the rest is history. About 20 years later, and here I am.
Nice. And other than Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you mentioned as a kid getting into Taekwondo and karate, and as I mentioned off the top as well, you've done some Muay Thai matches as well. Are there any other martial arts that you've gotten into as well, or is that the bulk of it?
So I cross-trained a lot for years, into like judo, Krav Maga, wrestling, just a lot of combatives and things like that. So, I dipped my toes in a lot of different things, and Taekwondo is one of the things that got me started and got into the demo team there. later on when I got my black belt and did some weapon demonstrations, things like that with my bow staff and nunchucks here and there. And yeah, that's about it.
Gotcha. Well, earlier you mentioned how the 80s and the 90s were kind of revolving around these big action stars, and most of them were Caucasian or white American or white. When you look at Sylvester Stallone, and you look at Jean-Claude Van Damme or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you mentioned that kind of being the peak, and we were talking offline about this as well, that kind of back then being the peak of masculinity and kind of what boys, no matter what color they were, kind of strive for. They always wanted to be like the good guys and the action heroes, and those were things that we looked at. And then you mentioned as well, more folks of color started coming to the forefront. When you mentioned Zach Black Ranger from Power Rangers, and you also mentioned Bruce Leroy as well. And so now we kind of fast forward, and one other thing that we discussed was kind of what kids were looking up to now. And you kind of mentioned that key phrase that I was like, oh yeah, we got to talk about this. And that's the Manosphere. And now seeing the relation of the Manosphere and with all the Andrew Tates, and now the relationship with that and with the UFC now. I know you've mentioned before, you kind of keep up with the UFC here and there, but you don't really watch them live. If you could explain to the people why that is.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, besides being busy and, these reviews are late in the night, I have noticed something over the years, and it's a lot of these politics on the promoter side. For instance, like Dana White, I've respected him and what he's done for the sport and where he stands and the relationships he's built. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of this echo chamber that falls into play with the people you mentioned already. But people I grew up watching forever, like Joe Rogan, for instance. And there's a following of people that kind of gravitate toward, the mixed martial arts side in the UFC. And then you have like the machismo kind of bubble of those influencers and, people that go into the machismo, what we call Manosphere nowadays, of, this is what a man should be. This is what should be entertainment. This is what we should be supporting. And so it crosses over and that blurs that line now, where even over the years, you see politics coming into play, and you see Dana White having this long-term relationship with, people like Trump or, other people, and not allowing to kind of be more mindful about things that come along with that. So it bleeds into the UFC, and then you see things that are being supported still that should not be supported, in my opinion, kind of in the art of martial arts, that we call Bushido. It's like, the way of martial arts, and there should be kind of a lane. And I feel like there's been a lot of crossing over of lanes. And I think once you start doing that, it can turn people off. And for me, I kind of stopped watching it because there are some things that they find more important. And when I say they, I'm talking about like now it's TKO, right, under that umbrella. Prior to that, it was, Lorenzo Fertitta, you had Frank Fertitta and Dana White under Zuffa banner. And then I feel like they had a little bit more class, in my opinion, in terms of how they went about their business. But now I feel like it's kind of become messy, and they're letting in all this toxic culture into the business and the format and what we call Manosphere. Hopefully that's making sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it seems as though some of the fighters are kind of like egging it on as well. We all know about Colby Covington and his antics. Well, you turn around and you also see Jorge Masvidal supporting Trump. You see Justin Gaethje going to the rallies with Trump. And so do you see, before I get into this proposed UFC card on the White House, do you see, and I think I did ask someone else this before, and they mentioned as though hey, I think UFC or TKO is just playing to who's in charge right now. And if it happens to switch back to Democrat, then they're going to do stuff that's more catering to that so that they can get on their good graces. So do you see a similar thing? Do you see the UFC changing, whether it be by the change or transition of whoever's in power, or do you think that it can be affected by people who don't want to watch this on their UFC, who want to quote unquote stick to sports? Like, do you see there being a change in the philosophy of how UFC is doing things when they're associating themselves with these political ideologies?
I think that's a great question because I have so many thoughts, and I'll try to keep it like compressed and short. But with Dana White being the forefront, he's one of those people. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss in here, by the way, but he does not give a fuck. Like he's always been like that, and if you kind of know his mentality, it's like obviously what's best for business. And sometimes, even though he says he's not going to do something, maybe a year later, 2 years later, he'll change his mind because there's pressure from the people, and that's what they want to pay and see, right? And there's shifts in the cultural expectations. But as long as he's kind of vocal, being that promoter and being able to lead, kind of fork into things, I think it's going to stay the path of how our culture is right now and how things are. But I think on the TKO side, I think they are kind of trying to look at it in a long-term business standing with the different properties that they've already obtained. If you're keeping up with some of the things that's happening, but like even with Dana White, him leaning into Power Slap or BJJ UFC, like there's this certain things that he's starting to kind of like take more attention to, and I think he's kind of seeing where the pull is more. And I don't know, from the chatter that I've heard over the years is like, especially recently, is that he's thinking about possibly stepping away from the UFC and more focusing on things. But, this hearsay, chatter and a lot of, there's no like actual official statements yet. But I guess to answer your question, I think it just depends on where people where their wallets are going right now. So with the prices too, those increasing in pay-per-views and things like that, you're not going to see legal streaming as much anymore, I don't think. So we'll see. I don't know.
Well, I think that goes along with, as you mentioned before, them being under TKO, because we're seeing a similar thing with the pricing at WWE events as well. As far as UFC and the streaming, I think once they get under Paramount, they might have some relief, but then I think we've witnessed it this week with the boycott of ABC and ESPN due to their treatment of Jimmy Kimmel. I think similar mindsets are going to be that way with Paramount and what they're doing with Stephen Colbert, and also just the way they're moving as well with CBS and with Paramount and Skydance. So I did want to mention, because I know you only got a few more minutes, so hopefully I could get a couple more questions in with you.
I'm fine. That's what I'm on, right?
In other words, so the White House card, do you think this is going to happen?
So, knowing the history of Trump, when he sets his mind to something, he tries to do it, just even if in spite of the backlash or whatnot. Same thing with Dana White. I feel like they have similar mentalities of going against the grain a little bit. And I think they've already made this claim that it's going to happen next, was it 2026, next summer. So, I mean, the ballroom, there's money already been put into creating that stuff or supporting, doing that in the White House. So I would not be surprised if it actually happens. And I think there's already been a lot of people that are saying that they want to fight at the White House. And these are people, I have my own opinions about. Some people I have respect for, some people I don't. I think some people just aren't as educated about like, okay, this may not be a good platform where the country is right now. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I totally understand. I think a lot of people are comparing it to the Romans having their gladiators fight in the midst of the fall of their regime or the fall of their government. So we'll see what happens with that. Do you think all the speculated fighters are going to actually be involved? Let's say John Jones and Connor. Do you think one of them are involved and actually fight? Do you think both of them fight? Do you think neither of them fight on that card?
So
if it happens,
anything can happen. We're living in 2025 right now. Pigs can fly. Like I'm not surprised by anything right now. We're seeing the movie Idiocracy unfold. So people that probably are retired could come out just because maybe Trump wants to see them fight. Who knows? You never see Chuck. You may see Chuck Liddell come out of retirement. He may be way past his prime, but he may be fans of certain people. It's just about how much money can you throw at them, right? There could be people that, like John Jones, he said he had one more fight, but I don't know. He's at the end of at the curve, and with all the speculations and the drama that's been ensuing, I don't know. Conor McGregor, same thing. He keeps talking. He's been talking for the past couple of years. Nothing's transpired. It's all talk. But, it's like seeing a car crash. If it happens, I'm probably going to watch it from the side, but I'm not going to invest my money into it, if you know what I'm saying.
I got you. And I did put out some feelers. If anybody owns a red hat, go ahead and send it to your boy so I could go undercover for press purposes. All right. Before I let you go, and this tails in with TKO as well. So you mentioned Dana White getting into the power slap, Dana White getting into UFC BJJ. We also had a boxing card that Dana White was heavily promoting alongside Turki Al-Sheikh, with Canelo Alvarez going up against Terrance Bud Crawford. And during the press conference, when a question was posed about the UFC or TKO rather trying to skirt and change and lessen the Ali Act, he kind of brushed it aside and said, hey, this is about them. If you want to have a-hole questions, come see me one-on-one or talk to me one-on-one, which I'm 100% positive that that's been set up, by the way. But what do you think? Do you think that the UFC is trying to pretty much, and TKO in a greater capacity, do you think that they're pretty much trying to have a stronghold and a monopoly over the combat sports world?
Yeah, so coincidentally, I was listening to a podcast, Stevie Ray, for professional wrestling fans, if you know, he's on YouTube. They were actually having this discussion about Saudi Arabia having WrestleMania the following year. And if you know any history about that, it's like, that's one of the things where there's just a lot of that controversy about like going over there and having those kind of big events. If you know anything about like how things have transpired in the past, it's kind of very murky water in terms of how you want to go approaching that. But in terms of like the boxing with the Ali Act and all that, the history of Dana White with the UFC purchasing Pride and Strikeforce and just buying out a lot of these properties, kind of similar to the Vince McMahon buying all these territories. It's going after the big threats and promotions, because ultimately I think there is a monopoly kind of approach to how they want to run things, and having all that control will kind of give them a lot more power over what decisions that they make, and even just how they want to structure the landscape of mixed martial arts, let alone boxing now. It is. I did see that interview question, and Dana being Dana of kind of sidestepping, like, yeah, this is not about me. This is about the fighters. If you want to have a one-on-one interview, we can have one. He handled it well, like a business promoter would. But ultimately, I think based on the past history and kind of how things are playing out slowly, I think that is where it's going. And I think they're just trying to, this is going to be silly, but like pinky in the brain, trying to rule the world, pretty much just control everything. That is what I think is happening and what we're seeing right now.
Gotcha. And by the way, yeah. It's not about me, even though I'm standing in the dais right in between these two, right in the front of the stage. Yeah, it's not about me, though. No. Yeah. that was very amusing to me. Yeah. All right. Well, I know you got to go. I know you're a very busy man. If you want to let the people know, if you want them to publicly find you, and also if they want to come in by and check out a class or so, if you wanted to peddle anything, go ahead. If you want to go ahead and shill, brother, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, thank you. I'm not that cool, but my IG is tbiz158. I teach outside of my job over at CP MMA, Combat Principles MMA. And then I also go over and train over at Beltway Martial Arts in downtown Silver Spring. So yeah, come check out if you're in Maryland area, Montgomery County. Definitely come through. And yeah, that's about it for me. Nothing too special. I appreciate you having me.
No problem, and I appreciate you taking out the time. And like I said before, we got to get you on for the Pro Wrestling Podcast because I know you have some thoughts on that as well. So thank you for taking the time, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you, sir.
No problem. Appreciate you as well. That is Tedy Bisrat, folks. Appreciate you. And we're going to continue on before we keep going. We're going to take a break. You know what? Take a pause for the cause, as our man 50 Grand Nate Milton would say. We're going to take a pause for the cause, and we're going to go ahead. After these messages, we're going to get back to what we left off at with Canelo versus Crawford. What I thought about the fight. Also, we'll talk about UFC. What was posed for 321 in November at the Madison Square Garden Arena in beautiful New York City. So all that and more when we come back right after this. Hi. It's your boy Two-Way Ray, and I'm just coming across your airwaves and interrupting this program for a very important message from us here at Nefarious Media Network. You see, we know that you guys love helping us out. And by the way, if you're hearing that little ditty in the background and you're familiar with our work, you know that's when we start feeding the ducks around here on the parlay. But in order to continue to support programs here like the Parlay, like the Adventures Initiative, like TDT Talks and Kung Fu Island, and of course the flagship Kings of Sport podcast, we just need you guys to help us out. And there are a few ways that you can do that. You see, one way is completely free. And that's by supporting us on all of our social media channels, whether it be X/Twitter, whether it be Instagram, or whether it be even our YouTube channel while we're on the drive for 500. You can follow us on all those different platforms absolutely free. Just type in Nefarious Media Network and it should take you right to it. Other ways that you can support us, again, another way that's completely free is by sharing us with your friends, with your family, even your enemies. Everybody needs a good podcast to listen to now and then, so please make sure to spread the word. And one more way that we can continue to bring truthful thoughtful and turned up entertainment and education to your earlobes and to your eyeballs is by supporting us on the Patreon, patreon.com/Nefarious Media Network. You see, you can get over 300 hours of great entertainment and education, whether it be in the realms of comic books or sports, professional wrestling, politics, even on sometimes education, as Professor Chris can drop some knowledge on you every now and then. So please, it costs you $5 a month. As Brother Nate loves to say, $5 gets you in the door. If you want to pay more, we won't stop you. And while you're joining the Patreon, or while you're a part of the Patreon, be on the lookout for the perks that we offer you guys. Be on the lookout for live watches that you can directly be a part of. Also be on the lookout for exclusive audio that cannot be found anywhere else but the Patreon, including our Styles Break Fights Extra podcast, where either myself and Chi-Chi will come on the air and just give you more information about what we talked about, or if there's any breaking news in the MMA world. So please be on the lookout for those things if you're already a member. And if you're not a member, go ahead. $5 for the cost of a biggie bag, less than a biggie bag nowadays. You can be a part of this revolution as it's getting broadcasted. So we appreciate you guys for supporting us thus far. And we ask that if you're not supporting us in any of those ways that I mentioned, that you please help out the cause. As I mentioned before, the draft for 500 goes along not only with the YouTube channel, but also with the Patreon subscriptions. So please, if you can spare, we would really appreciate it. But if you can't, any of those free options are available as well. So with that, I thank you so very much for listening. Let's get on back to the program. Yeah. Feed those ducks. Oh, yeah. Man, ducks. Preview. Up in some. If we get to 500, feed those ducks. And we are back here. Once again, I want to thank my friend, martial arts instructor, Tedy Bisrat, for joining me today. And we try to fit in a bunch of topics within the time frame that he could stick around with me. So I thank him for the time. Once again, if you're ever in the Washington, D.C. area, specifically in Montgomery County, whether it be Burtonsville or whether it be Silver Spring, go ahead, look this brother up. Definitely worth the price of admission. Look this brother up if you want to train, you want to learn some things, not only specifically from him, but from the gyms that he mentioned, whether it be CP MMA Combat Principles in Burtonsville, Maryland, headed up by Joshua Peters, or whether it be through Beltway Martial Arts over in Silver Spring, headed up by Nick Robeson. Either way, we got two fantastic local area gyms. So please don't be a stranger. If you're in the area, go ahead and check those spots out. And who knows, you might see Teddy there wandering around, choking people out. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and break down some of the stuff that happened over the month that we was gone, guys. So, as I mentioned towards the end of our conversation, Canelo Alvarez was the bigger man. The bigger man was the A side, if you will, of this particular fight. But he goes down to one Terrance Bud Crawford, who had to come up 2 to 3 weight classes up. That's a difference of about 12 to 15 pounds, even more than that. This brother had to make his way up to super middleweight. This brother naturally fought as a welterweight, and then he went up to junior middleweight, not too far, or not too far in the past, but relatively recently. But that man had to jump all the way up to meet Canelo, super heavyweight, or not super heavyweight, but super middleweight. So a lot of people were thinking, hey, Canelo's got the power. He's going to try to bully him. He's going to try to look for that knockout shot. Bud has to be quick on his feet. He has to still move around. He may not be able to knock Canelo out, but he can make him feel his power a bit to stave him off. And that's pretty much how the fight went. It seemed as though Canelo was chasing a lot. Bud Crawford won by decision. I should mention as well, by decision. Two judges gave him the fight, 115 to 113, so had him winning 7 rounds to 5. One judge gave it 116 to 114, had him winning 8 rounds to 4. So I was pretty much in line with the judge that had him winning 8 rounds to 4. I didn't really see rounds in which Canelo was dominating. I think there were rounds that Canelo was landing shots and they were kind of going back and forth. But I felt as though once Crawford got into the feel of the movement and circling away and just smiling at Canelo round after round, I feel like, especially I think after the 4th or 5th round, I think he felt he was in control from that point. I felt as though he realized that Canelo couldn't bully him. He realized Canelo couldn't catch him with the shots. And Canelo wasn't really throwing that many jabs either. I think Canelo at the end of the fight, I think maybe over 20 jabs in the entire fight. He wasn't working a lot of combinations. He was mainly working either trying to get in with one shot or with 2 shots or 2 punches at most. Wasn't really throwing a lot of combinations. In contrast, Bud was throwing a lot more combinations. I think Canelo was trying to take the wind out of him. He threw a heck of a lot of body shots, especially within the first half of the fight. I think he was trying to take the wind out of him, thinking that Crawford, especially with him gaining that amount of weight and muscle, that he would try to tire him out going into the later rounds if he was just throwing those body shots. But it didn't seem as though Canelo was landing a lot of shots to the head. Like, Crawford did a tremendous job in shelling up and absorbing some of the punishment on the arms and rolling with the punches. Even when he was standing still, I think once he knew he could stand still and not get dramatically hurt I think that's when Terrance knew that he had the fight in the bag. He mentioned at the press conference when the question was asked, when did you feel as though you would win this fight? And I love the line that he gave when he signed the contract. That's a good, bold line right there. But he made it happen, and he is now the first male boxer, shout out to Clarissa Shields, first male boxer to have 3 undisputed championships in 3 different weight classes. Historic, man. Very historic. We'll see what happens with him. Canelo, though, I think this is kind of a wake-up call. I'm not saying that he's shot, but it just seems as though he couldn't get into the groove. He couldn't work into like any combinations to even set up his big shots. Like he threw some here and there, but it just seemed as though, again, either Bud was able to catch the shots on his shoulders or on his guard, or he was just able to dodge it just enough so that he was kind of like at the end of the punch and that he didn't absorb that much punishment. So, I mean, it'll be hard to say where Canelo goes from here. I think if you want to start having that conversation about Bud Crawford, we already were having a conversation about him being pretty much the best pound-for-pound boxer in the game right now. And that conversation just continues to grow now. If only 60% of boxing fans were thinking that before, I think it's shot up dramatically after that performance by Terrance Bud Crawford. We'll see what's in store for him as well. If he continues to defend a super middleweight championship, I think he was already stripped of another belt due to inactivity, I believe. But it's all good. He's on the top of the world. And shout out to Omaha, Nebraska, too. You don't see too much melanation coming out of there. So shout out to Terrance Bud Crawford. Shout out to his family. And shout out to Omaha, Nebraska. I see y'all. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. As I mentioned again in our interview, that fight was promoted by Dana White and by Turki Al-Sheikh, one of the governmental officials from Saudi Arabia, who has really been dipping his hand into not only boxing, but in combat sports as a whole. We've seen him in the press conference. Again, cover your ears if you're not a pro wrestling fan. But we saw him side by side with Triple H, Paul Levesque, as they were making the announcement that WWE WrestleMania 43 is coming to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in 2027. And now we see we already had him with Dana White in the hotel room saying that they're going to make this TKO boxing thing a real thing. And now you already see them co-promoting. A lot of people were saying, oh, we're starting to see cracks within the relationship already, with Turki Al-Sheikh saying in the press conference, hey guys, Dana's got a big announcement for you guys, and he's going to talk about it right now. And then they hand the microphone, and it's just like, Dana's like, have a good night, folks. See you tomorrow. Like, oh, I couldn't stop laughing. It's just like, come on, bro. Like, don't you realize, like, be on the same page. If you guys are going to come out with this relationship and with this partnership, you guys got to be on the same page. And so we'll see what happens with that. I know. I mean, hey, maybe Canelo will be like, you know what? I don't want to box competitively anymore. Go ahead, give me the freak show fights. Give me the Jake Paul fights. Maybe set that up again. But I'm not sure if they'll allow him within the contract. I believe he signed either a 3 or 4 fight contract with Turkey. So we'll see how that goes and if he can get the career back on track or if he starts winding down and saying, hey, I think we've come to the end of the road. I think he's still relatively young, 35. But Crawford is older than him. He's 2 years older than him. So I don't know what's down the line for Bud as well, but it's going to be exciting. And I can't wait to see that. So that has been your boxing minute, folks. Speaking of boxing minutes, have you guys saw Jake Paul? I think it just this past weekend they had the face-off, their first of many face-offs leading to their eventual fight. Jake Paul, who usually walks around at about 185, 190 pounds, about 6'2", 6'3", will be going against Gervonta Tank Davis, who walks around at about 5'6", 135, 40 pounds. And I know a lot of people are just like, oh, why is this man Gervonta going to wipe the floor with him? He going to wipe the mat with him. It ain't even a question. This is why Jake Paul makes all this money, guys. He already knows that if he could put himself in a position, because while if they were the same size, I would definitely agree. Tank would run him up out of there. He'll beat the brakes off him if they were the same size. But because Jake Paul holds a half a foot of height on him, holds like 50 pounds at least weight advantage, and who knows what the reach is going to be. Like, I just think these are one of the fights that Jake Paul can kind of save himself from embarrassment, not get fully knocked out. He may still lose by just sheer boxing skill of Gervonta Davis. I don't know who's sanctioning this fight. Who's sanctioning this or making it? I don't know if they're going to make it an exhibition. I hope they make it an exhibition, because if they actually sanction this and make this an actual fight, I think there are deeper problems within boxing than we even realized right now. Like, we already know the problems with boxing. We already know TKO boxing trying to pretty much monopolize that sport to the same effect that they've monopolized MMA, and similar effect as WWE has monopolized pro wrestling. And in the event with WWE and with pro wrestling, at least now we have a viable number 2 who may not be just as big, but it's kind of like they're not too far off as far as, I think, in name recognition. I think WWE blows AEW out the water. But I think as far as like actual wrestling content or actual wrestling talent and having a rabid fan base for either, I think AEW is holding this on. It may not right now seem as though they're gaining any ground, but I think, especially with them, I think they're lasting longer as a viable number 2 than WCW did back in the day. So I think the sky's the limit for AEW. But to say that, I would say WWE has a bit more of a road to hoe. That's why we saw the counter programming on this past Saturday with WWE broadcasting WrestlePalooza on ESPN, the all-in-one app, to go up against AEW's All Out, which was broadcast on different pay-per-view sites, Triller, I think Bleacher Report, and also HBO Max as well. So I think WWE does sense that they don't have a stranglehold on the sport as they once did. But with that, MMA still has a stranglehold. There's no really close number two in MMA, if you want to call PFL kind of a number two by default alone, because there's not really much else in the States that's as big as PFL that have at it. But they're nowhere close to. If I'm comparing PFL to UFC the same way I'm comparing AEW to WWE, there's no comparison. Like there's I think AEW is in a much better place than the PFL is right now. So we'll see what happens with that. And as far as with boxing is concerned, with the model of boxing and them, it's kind of like it's not structured to have like a number one promotion, number two promotion, number three promotion, number four. It's structured so that all of these promotions, especially with the Ali Act intact, all of these promotions are working to get the best fighters on their behalf, but they have to go out of their way. They don't just have them locked in to their promotion. It's like if Bud wanted to fight for Turkey one for a couple fights, then fight with Top Rank for a couple fights, then fight with Matchroom for a couple fights, then he could do that. And there's really nothing holding them back. So I think boxing right now is more helpful I think the model of it is a bit more helpful for the actual athletes, the actual boxers, than say pro wrestling and MMA is for their respective athletes. I know a lot of people have been clamoring, not enough apparently, but a lot of athletes have been clamoring for a union within either MMA or professional wrestling. Not sure if that's going to happen. It's probably like a 5% chance, if that, of either of those sports or of those arts actually coming together and actually banding together to form unions. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened back in 2020 when the athletes had all the leverage. Like, all right, you don't want to meet our demands? All right, we don't show up and you can't show anything. It's like everybody's locked down anyway. It's like they had the leverage and they let it slip through their fingertips, and then they ended up just going into work in empty arenas, whether it be on MMA side with actually fighting in empty arenas where you could hear all the punches and the cornermen in the corner, or whether it be on the WWE side or in the professional wrestling side where you're either wrestling in front of I don't want to say lower tier, but you're wrestling in front of independent wrestlers who are acting like they're fans, or you're wrestling in front of screens with people's faces on them. And occasionally you have Chris Benoit pop up on one of them screens. Oh, that was horrible. But yeah, so I think they had the leverage back then. They don't have the leverage anymore, especially with, again, the merging, or not the merging, but the partnership of UFC and WWE under one umbrella with TKO. it's like me and Teddy talked about it. Now they feel as though they can monetize everything. They have these crazy ads or these crazy products that they're advertising. I know that John Pollock and Wei Ting were mentioning it in their review of both WrestlePalooza and All Out on Post Wrestling, wherever you find your podcasts with Post Wrestling, or on YouTube as well. Just the crazy things, like the man, like Hulk Hogan literally died like 2 months ago, and you're hawking beer with the Hulkamania logo on it, and you got these things that's supposed to stop like electromagnetic waves from getting into the ring, and you're pushing that as well. Because as first when I saw it, because your boy, when I was watching WrestlePalooza, your boy got that VPN. You hear me? Thank you, Steph. So the feed that I got, I was on that Netflix feed. So I just saw them zooming in on this gold card on the post. I didn't know nothing about it. I thought it was some kind of cryptocurrency thing again. I'm like, they still pushing the crypto. But apparently, yeah, it's EFR free. So yeah, it's like, I guess it's supposed to defend against 5G waves from getting in you and all that other stuff from getting on you. I'm like, oh my goodness, these guys will take money from anybody. And I'm not condoning anything else that this brother gets into, but one semi-noble thing that Vince McMahon did was that, hey, wrestling, man, is sacred. I'll put advertisements all on the apron, or I'll put like lower thirds or upper thirds in the corner of the screen, but I'm not putting no logos on the mat. I'm not having everybody come out here with doggone Slim Jim patches on them and stuff like that, with sponsorships all on them. Of course, he wasn't averse to getting no ad money, like having the having advertisements. You guys remember when he had this whole? It was like a series of KFC commercials involving WWE talent like Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. It was crazy. And then they had the Southpaw Regional Wrestling talent, which that was actually kind of creative, especially when they had Ric Flair, like the actual Ric Flair voicing over it, but underneath it had a lower third saying, Ric Flair impersonator, please do not sue, or something. And that was creative, but I like that part. But to get back on topic, guys, I think TKO wants to have an iron fist in the world of combat sports, whether it comes to professional wrestling, whether it comes to mixed martial arts, and now as it's leading towards professional boxing as well. We'll see if he can pull it off. Dana White and Eddie Hearn, who's a very key figure in boxing as one of the top promoters in the sport right now. They were having a lively back and forth, not face to face, but a lively back and forth over social media and through interviews as well. I think the legacy promoters in boxing are not going to go down without a fight. So we'll see what happens in that particular arena, both literally and figuratively. So with that, let's just move on. I won't be before you much longer, but I did want to go over some news that we received as far as upcoming cards. So we already know UFC 320. We got Magomed Ankalaev defending his championship in a rematch against Poatan Pereira. So we're going to have that going on. We're also going to have Merab Dvalishvili defending his UFC. And by the way, Ankalaev is defending the UFC light heavyweight championship. Merab Dvalishvili will be defending his UFC featherweight championship against Corey Sandhagen. So that is going to be a phenomenal card, I believe. Well, let's see. Let's check it out. Excuse me. So we got Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira at the top of the card for the UFC light heavyweight championship. We got Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen for the UFC featherweight championship. We got Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov. We got Yuri Prochazka, former UFC light heavyweight champion, going up against Khalil Roundtree, which I believe is pretty much going to set up the next contender for the title. And also that could serve as maybe a backup fighter in case the two principals, one of them does not make it for the title. You could just pluck either Yuri or Khalil and plug them in as well. So we'll see. And to round out the main card, we got Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Zalal. So looks like it's going to be a pretty decent main card. And then we're going to move on to UFC 321. That's when now the UFC linear heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall will be defending his title against Cyril Gane. That's going to be a big fight coming up for UFC 321. Or I believe that's 322. Let me go ahead and check through this. Let me go back. I just want the pay-per-view cards, but it won't. So we'll just do this. Scroll on down. That's 323. I don't want one. Yep, UFC 321 is Aspinall versus Gane. Co-main event looks like it's going to be Virna Jandiroba versus Mackenzie Dern. Oh, okay. So that looks like that's going to be a number one contender fight for the women's strawweight championship. It looks like that's going to be a number one contender fight for that. All right. Alexei Volkov versus Jonathan Almeida. Alexander Rakic versus Murzakhanov. And to wrap up that card, or that main card rather, you have Umar Nurmagomedov looking to bounce back off of his title contending loss to go against Mario Batista. So that's looking to be a decent card that will be taking place in Abu Dhabi. Okay. And then the most exciting news in my eyes is for UFC 322 again, which will be taking place in New York City, in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. Your headlining fight, Jack Della Maddalena, JDM, will be defending his UFC welterweight championship against the former number one pound for pound best in the world and the former UFC lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. That's going to be a barn burner, as will the co-main event, Valentino Bullet Shevchenko versus Zhang Wei Li for Shevchenko's UFC UFC strawweight title. Zhang Weili, or Shevchenko's UFC flyweight title. Zhang Weili has vacated her UFC strawweight title as she's going up to face Valentina Shevchenko. Then for the rest of the main card, you have Aaron Blanchfield versus Tracy Cortez, which is actually a rematch. They fought one another in the Invicta FC. You got Leon Edwards, who's trying to bounce back from losing his welterweight championship against Carlos Prates. And then you got Susurkayev versus Eric Mikamiko in the middleweight division. So a lot of these cards, I mean, you got like the top two fights look like they fire, but then the rest of the card is like, It's like you got some guys who are trying to bounce back from recent losses, like a Leon Edwards. I don't know why I said Leon Edwards or Umar Magomedov. Some guys that just bounced back from some losses recently, who fought on some UFC fight night cards. The one that comes to mind is Diego. Why is his name escaping me? Diego, not Limas. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Diego. Music with Diego. Diego Lopez with a big win over Jean Silva. Was able to pretty much, I think he was in danger a little bit, but then he was able to counter it because Silva was being a bit too sloppy with his striking. And admittedly, he was ignoring the advice of his coaches and still trying to get on the attack and stay on stay on Lopez rather. And Lopez, I believe it was a spinning back fist that put him down. And he was able to finish the fight after that. It was crazy. So, and I don't know. I think people need to pump the brakes on the whole is the fight. I mean, after one loss, now all of you guys are saying, all the fight nerds, man, they just a bunch of frauds, man. They ain't really a good gym. Like, come on now. Really? That's what we're doing? Come on now. Get it together. So, but yeah, we saw Lopez bounce back from his loss against Alexander Volkanovski, who is going to be in the next Street Fighter movie, by the way. But we saw him bounce back. So we'll see if Umar Nurmagomedov can bounce back as well as Leon Edwards. So with that being said, yes, I'm totally looking forward to Zhang Weili versus Shevchenko. I've been looking forward to that fight happening for the last 2-3 years. I think it's well overdue. I know Shevchenko had to get some things together against Alexa Grasso. She had to get her mind right again after, I think, first fight was a draw. Second fight, she won handily using her wrestling. I would love to see the contrast between the wrestling and the judo style entries of Shevchenko against just the pristine, precise striking and footwork of Zhang Weili. And we'll see if her power that she possesses in the strawweight division transfers as she's going up in weight as well. That's going to be interesting to see too. I am very excited about that fight, bro. You don't know how. Like, unfortunately, we're probably going to have to deal with your boy 45, 47. Showing up and having another quasi rally. Well, or hopefully he has better things to do, like actually looking out for our country. We'll see. No politics, though. No politics. But yeah, I just want to enjoy the fights, man. Just let me enjoy the fights. Why you gotta bring politics into this? Why I gotta see a bunch of people with Make America Great Again? Okay, no politics. All right, but yeah, that's what we got on the slate for the next 3 UFC cards, guys. So I hope you guys are excited or as excited. I know, guys. There's a lot of people who've gotten out of the sport of mixed martial arts due to the political atmosphere and environment. And not only that, but as we were mentioning in our discussion, myself and Tedy, just the toxic masculinity space that's kind of breeding around this sport and kind of revolving around this sport. But I hope that you guys can still see that there are excellent fighters within this sport who want nothing to do with any of that, with any of that drama. And hopefully there's some likable folks. Even if they do prescribe to that in one way, they're not going to let that color their entire personality, i.e. a Colby Covington. So there's some good fighters out there. I mean, hey, Tom Aspinall, he ain't even from this country. He don't care about no. When he was mentioning in his interview with Ariel Helwani, and Helwani's just like, hey, do you want to be on that card with John Jones at the White House? He was like, I couldn't really care any less. Ariel, I don't care if we fighting at the White House. I don't care if we fighting in the phone booth. I'm exaggerating now, but that's essentially what he said. But yeah, so at least you could root for the Brit, even though everybody in the arena is going to start chanting USA, but they're going to be in Abu Dhabi, so maybe we might not hear that either. So maybe that's good. But yeah, that's crazy, man. And I think Tedy alluded to it as well. The injection of the Saudi Arabian influence, and a little bit to a lesser extent, the injection of the Arab Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, their influence when they have cards at their venues as well. Like, they're trying to cover up for things that they're doing within their regimes, their respective regimes, by just saying, hey, we love everybody. Just come on over. We'll have your sporting events over here. We'll have your golf events, live golf or live golf. We'll have WrestleMania on here. We're fun for the whole family. Just don't be LGBTQ. Don't speak against the Honorable Mohammed bin Salman. And you can leave out with all your limbs. And women just cover up from head to toe, and you'll be all right. But yeah, everybody is welcome. Like, so, but yeah, just the injection of those two entities with seemingly endless amount of funds to support their agendas. So yeah, it's been weird. I admit it's been weird following the sport. Yeah, I'm hoping UFC doesn't have any big cards coming up in Saudi Arabia. They already kind of work with Abu Dhabi. That's how they pretty much got the whole Fight Island off the ground. And I think that's when they pretty much chose a side as well. I think even early in Trump's first, in his first administration, like UFC wasn't pushing it as hard. It was mainly just confined with the individual fighters. But the actual brand wasn't pushing as hard. I think until the pandemic happened and they were trying to find places to still put on fights, entertaining going to Indian reservations since they don't have commissions. It was just crazy. And so they were trying to figure out any legal way that they can continue to put on fights. And I think that's when they were kind of going against the whole vaccination and all of this stuff. They were going against, they were being anti-mask and being anti-social distancing. And that's when you kind of started to see the shift in UFC, like their ideology from catering to everybody to catering to a certain base. So, yeah, I've been following this. I've been following this sports for at least 15 years. So, on one hand, it's just like I'm here for the sport, regardless of who's in power, regardless of who they are associating with. I'm just here for the sport. I try to keep up with PFL as best I can as well, but sometimes they don't really promote those as well, and I think that's not a travesty, but I think that's not a miscommunication, but trying to find the word to use, but I think that misfire. That's a misfire on behalf of ESPN and on behalf of the higher ups at PFL as well, as far as promoting that particular league, promoting that, hey, we absorbed Bellator, and Bellator had some of the best fighters in the world, and also with absorbing their contracts, not being willing to pay them to fight because they're like, oh, well, if you were originally under us, we wouldn't pay you this much. We'll have you under this pay scale. But since we're inheriting your salary and we don't want to pay that, we're just going to let you, we're just going to have you lavishing on the sidelines. So that's a disservice that I think was done by the higher ups at PFL. And again, that just shows the massive gap between the number one and the number two when it comes to mixed martial arts. So that's my rant, guys. That is my rant. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you. We love you guys. If you want to reach out to us, man, go ahead. Find us on all social media platforms, whether it be in X/Twitter, whether it be IG, Instagram, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Blue Sky. Find us on wherever you do most of your browsing with social media. Just type in Nefarious Media. We'll pop up some way, somehow. We're either Nef_Media under TikTok, which I forgot to mention, or we're Nefarious Media Network, the whole thing. Say the whole thing like a Tribe Called Quest. Or if we're just under Nefarious Media, just enter those words and we are sure to pop up in some way, form, or fashion. So also, if you're not already, subscribe to us on YouTube, where we have free live watches that pop up on there. Please go ahead, give a look-see. We just recently had a live watch at WWE WrestlePalooza with myself, the Professor Chris Ely, and the perturbed one at the time, the Godfather, Nate Milton. We also had special guest Rich Fan from pwtorch.com as well. Had an entertaining and delightful conversation spanning many different topics. Of course, Chris getting into the political realm when it comes to the boycott of ESPN and ABC, and how that could be related to WrestlePalooza and how many people could have tuned in for that. So we get into a deep topic about that. Nate comes on to vent his frustrations with his shoot job. So a lot of different topics that we touch on. So yeah, it was a great conversation, and you can be involved with that as well if you go ahead while we're having those live chats. You could be in the chat, just supplying us with questions or supplying us with not compliments. If you want to give us compliments, you can give us compliments, but comments and opinions that you think about that particular show that we're watching. Like I said, we did one on WrestlePalooza. Who knows? We might have one coming up. You never know. That's why you got to be subscribed to our YouTube. All the previous social media platforms that I mentioned along with YouTube are free. But if you got a little bit of spare change, you can join us over at Patreon. Patreon.com/Nefarious Media Network, where you can get over 300 hours of podcasting goodness, whether it be about pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows, martial arts TV shows and movies. We stretch the gamut, man. We go across the gamut, across the spectrum, even politics, as I mentioned, with the 2020 and the TDT talks. So please go ahead. If you got a little bit of change, the base level has been lowered. So you could get in as low as $3 a month. Yes, you heard correctly, not $29.99 a month like some people out here. I ain't pointing no fingers. But $3 a month, as low as $3 a month for the price of a venti coffee, even cheaper than a venti coffee at Starbucks. You could be down with Nefarious, guys. So please go ahead, support us as we're on the drive for 500 paid Patreon subscribers, 500 YouTube subscribers. We couldn't do this without you guys, without the support. We thank those that are already subscribed. Continue to stick with us. We're going to have some more perks for you guys coming out if you're on the Patreon. And if we boost those numbers up on the YouTube, then who knows? We might be able to come out with a membership on there and have some perks for you guys as well. So appreciate you joining me on today. As you can tell, I'm still here. Hopefully, Lord, please don't pass me by. Don't pass me by, Jesus. Please take me with you. But it doesn't look as though the rapture is happening right now. But again, we got another 6 hours left to go. So hopefully you hear me next month for another rousing edition, a rousing installment, if you will, of the SBF Styles Break Fight. Hopefully see you back next month as we go into October, Halloween month. Just 3 more months left to go in this year, guys. Oh, time passes by so fast, but hopefully we'll see each other again very soon. With that, I'm Two-Way Ray. You guys have a tremendous day. Thank you for joining me again for another installment of the Styles Breaks Fights podcast. Till next time, God bless you. God keep you. Peace out.